A home advertised for $500,000 can require barely more than $510,000 to complete in one market, around $550,000 in another, and more than $800,000 for certain foreign buyers. While the sticker price remains identical, the administrative burden varies wildly. From Dubai's registration fees to Germany's closing costs and Singapore's extraordinary foreign buyer tax, the same $500,000 home creates 6 completely different financial realities. So where does the advertised price come closest to the real price, and where is it almost meaningless? Property listings are centered on one large number. That number anchors a buyer's expectations and dictates the mortgage conversation, yet it rarely represents the full amount of cash required to secure legal ownership. Transfer taxes, stamp duties, and legal fees can turn a purchase into a significant liquidity challenge. To compare these global hubs accurately, we're using a fixed baseline, a hypothetical cash purchase of a resale apartment advertised at exactly $500,000 across 6 major cities. These properties are not equivalents. A $500,000 budget in Manhattan or central London buys a fraction of the space available for the same price in Berlin, Tokyo, or Dubai. This comparison isolates the frictional cost of completing the transaction once the price is agreed. We have excluded moving expenses, furniture, and renovations, as well as annual ownership costs like property tax or building service charges. The goal is to calculate the total capital required to reach the point of legal possession. Evaluating a market based on listing prices alone ignores the legal mechanisms that define the true entry point for global capital. The listing is a starting point. The local regulatory environment determines the finish line. New York presents a complex budgeting challenge because closing costs shift based on property type, borough, and the specific financing structure used. For a cash buyer purchasing a resale condominium, legal fees, title searches, and recording charges typically add 2 to 4% to the price. This brings the real acquisition budget to approximately $510,000 to $520,000. Financed purchases increase this requirement further. Mortgage recording taxes, appraisals, and lender legal expenses force a buyer to reserve additional cash, often reaching a total of $515,000 to $530,000. The legal form of the building also changes the friction. Buying a cooperative apartment involves purchasing shares in a corporation rather than real property, which removes some title insurance needs, but introduces board application and building-specific fees. In London, stamp duty land tax is progressive. Different rates apply only to specific tiers of the purchase price. A local buyer expects an acquisition bill around $515,000 to $525,000. However, non-UK residents face overlapping surcharges, pushing the requirement as high as $565,000. London also features a distinction between freehold and leasehold properties. Most apartments are leaseholds, requiring buyers to account for the remaining lease term and future liabilities for service charges and building maintenance. While New York and London keep the acquisition price recognizable for local cash buyers, their intricate legal classifications create significant variable friction for everyone else. Dubai operates on an upfront model. It trades the recurring annual property taxes found in many Western cities for a high initial entry fee. The mandatory 4% Dubai Land Department transfer fee and 2% agency commission create an entry cost roughly $30,000 to $40,000 beyond the property price.
Dubai offers consistency. An international investor pays the exact same transfer fees as a local buyer. Berlin represents the opposite extreme, acting as one of the highest friction markets in this comparison. Every transaction must pass through a strict notary process and be recorded in the land register. These mandatory legal fees are paired with high regional real estate transfer taxes. When you add the buyer-side agent commission, the total closing burden ranges from 7 to 12%. This means a $500,000 apartment actually requires between $535,000 and $560,000 in upfront cash. This 10% entry fee changes the investment logic. Because the cost of entry is so high, a property must appreciate significantly just to reach a break-even point, making Berlin a difficult market for short-term capital. Dubai and Berlin demand high upfront liquidity. Dubai offers long-term tax simplicity, while Berlin's high-friction entry acts as a barrier to rapid resale. Tokyo uses a multi-layered tax system, where the total bill is the sum of several smaller professional and government charges.
Tokyo's acquisition and registration taxes use an official government-assessed value, typically lower than the $500,000 market price. This assessment method keeps total acquisition costs between 5 and 8%, resulting in a stable total budget of $525,000 to $540,000 for both local and foreign individuals. While Japan welcomes foreign capital with these moderate taxes, it maintains a strict separation between property and residency. Owning a home provides no path to immigration status or residency rights. Singapore represents a departure from these structures. In this market, the buyer's passport is the single most important factor in the final bill. A local citizen buying their first home faces manageable duties, keeping the all-in cost around $510,000 to $520,000. The additional buyer stamp duty targets foreign investors with a 60% penalty. This adds $300,000 to the purchase. Including standard duties, a foreign buyer needs over $815,000 to acquire the same property a local citizen buys for roughly $515,000. Singapore demonstrates that in highly regulated markets, the advertised price is an unreliable metric. The true barrier to entry is dictated by buyer classification. Comparing all 6 cities confirms that identical listing prices result in vastly different cash requirements. Local, first-time buyers find the closest alignment between the advertised price and the final cost in markets like Singapore and New York. For international investors, Dubai and Tokyo are structurally more efficient, as they avoid the extreme identity-based penalties found in London or Singapore. Short-term capital faces the greatest risk in high-friction environments like Berlin, where the initial costs of entry can easily exceed 10%. To evaluate a property market effectively, you must answer 4 questions. What is the advertised price? What is the all-in acquisition cost? What is the annual cost of ownership? And how difficult is the eventual resale? A low upfront tax does not guarantee a low total cost of ownership. The calculation must account for the years of service charges and taxes that follow the purchase. A property listing is only the start of the financial commitment. The true cost of real estate is determined by the regulatory environment of the city. We examine where your capital works most effectively.